And I'm going to share my screen. All right, so this is just kind of a document that we made with just kind of literally every single step helping a buyer. So last week we talked about, the legal things to do, like making sure they get the initial agency disclosure, making sure they're pre-approved and kind of the process for that. When you first meet with them, whether it's in person or even a phone call or Zoom, like what you talk about, safety measures, where you can get marketing materials of like handouts to bring to them. Everyone on this call that's an agent is with EXP, so EXP Marketing Center. This call is open to anybody from anywhere, so make sure you are bringing agent friends that want just a little bit of extra personal training. That's the only kind of personal training I do. We actually have 2 agents on our team that are actual personal trainers, right? Alex, you're like a personal trainer, aren't you?
Yeah. Yes, I am.
Yeah. So both of our Spanish speakers are personal trainers. I think that's funny. But
Hey, Jordan, quick question.
Yes.
Are you able to let Erica in or text her the ID? She's having issues logging
I was
in.
able to get in. I don't know if you can hear me.
Never mind.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jeremiah, though. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks for having her back. I love it. All right. So I started with the showing homes, I believe, right? Section last time. I should have gone on YouTube and like checked where I left off. But we talked about in preparation reviewing the private remarks. Does everyone remember that, or should I start there? Do you remember me talking about like what you can do to avoid pissing off a listing agent?
We'll just start there.
Alex remembers. Alex remembers it.
Okay.
Oh, you do.
In the chat.
Okay. Okay. Does anyone want us to do a quick recap? You can do like a little raise hand or the chat. Alex remembers.
All right.
Any recap requests? All right, cool. So so I think everyone remembers this. So that's awesome because it is important to do. But I think last time I said, side note, if you're the listing agent, like especially Hilltop, like have grace and understanding for those that might have missed the private remarks, but we can't control, the other listing agents that we don't know. So we'll do everything we can to try to stay on their good side. But anyways, yeah, and reviewing the accepted loan types, nothing is worse than, an FHA buyer and you show them the home and they fall in love and they want to write an offer. And then you realize, oh, like that home is not FHA eligible. And yes, there are ways around that once in a while, but if the seller is not even going to entertain FHA offers like that, even though it is not your fault that they're not, it is something that you could have avoided by making sure that it's eligible for that loan type. So but either way, the buyer could view you as it being something that's your fault, something that disappointed them. So that's just kind of a lot of what we're going over right now is like, what can you do? Like go that extra mile so that way there's as little of a possibility of them being disappointed, so we do more than the bare minimum, basically.
Just barely.
All right. So, of course, scheduling the showings, spacing them out correctly. I'm sure everyone on here knows, but using Google Maps, it lets you add a destination. It lets you move them around. So you make sure you're in the geographical area.
So you're not going from Kaiser to South Salem, back to Kaiser, back to South Salem.
Yeah. All right. So, oh yeah, I did talk about this, what you can bring to their showing. So I bring the house hunting checklist from the EXP Marketing Center, and a nice folder. I try to bring them a pen if possible, and like a printout of the MLS sheet. But you know, if it's a last minute showing, or if you don't have those things, or your printer's broken, just show up, you know, have it open on your phone. So that way you've like briefed yourself on the details of the house, and, you know, you can answer confidently. Cause honestly, like there's, especially if they're a first time home buyer, like if you don't know the detail about a home, they're going to be like, why don't they know the detail about a home? They don't really like, they don't put it all together that you aren't also the listing agent until you're into the process. You explain those things to them, you know, explain the process to them. So just kind of moving slowly and clarifying as you go, and just be as knowledgeable as you can really sets you apart. Yeah, have your phone charged so you can actually get into the house. Be there early. I like to go in and turn on the lights before, if possible. Sometimes I'm not, but I always try to turn them on and like at least get them into the kitchen, which is like the main part of the house. They're going to need to like love the kitchen. And so I try to at least turn on those. And while they're like walking around the kitchen, I run and turn on all the other lights, open doors, make it look pretty. So they walk through and ooh and ah, and it's not just some weird, dark, creepy house. So, and I have the chat box open. So feel free to like kind of add in things that you do or things that you found that are helpful. Basically, you want to have it be just a really fun experience as they view the house. And something that I found is really helpful is just reminding them, like, to, if they're having, you know, gut feelings about the house, like you can actually see it on their face usually. So kind of validating to them that if they're like walked in and their face lit up and they're like, you can tell that they're having that gut feeling towards wanting this home or seeing themselves in it, like validating that they can trust that feeling, and then
Read the room.
yeah, literally. All right. So, let's see. I think everyone on here has shown a house. There are 2 on here that have not shown houses. So you'll bring your business card with you and leave it on usually the kitchen counter, unless there's somewhere that looks better, leave it. And then when you leave, you lock up, you turn off the light, you leave it how you found it. There's been a few times where we walked in, the lights are on. So we leave it as like that. We leave, and I always text the listing agent like, hey, like we left the lights on just as we found it. So kind of just like leaving it as you found it. It's helpful if you let the listing agent know what your client's feedback is. Because like we actually had a good feedback thing today. Do you want to tell them about that and why it was good and helpful?
Yes. So these clients, we've been working with them to sell their house for probably 4 months now. Kind of stubborn on price and getting their house in like you know, looking good in a way that's going to be presentable to people. Kind of just stubborn. So it took a while for them to even want to do a price drop.
We have tried to,
We paid for staging, like
someone
an
to come
organizer.
in and stage their existing furniture, yeah, and organize their house.
Yeah. So, and then when they did show up, like they were like really resistant to like everything they were trying to
They didn't
do.
want anything
And
to
it
be
was,
moved.
you know, it's just been kind of a journey. So we like got some feedback today from an agent, and he was like, basically just validating everything that we've been trying to tell them already. And like hearing it from us is one thing, but like hearing it from like actual
Agent that's showing
Yeah,
their
yeah.
buyers, yeah.
So, you know, that he said, good morning. He's like, it wasn't quite the right fit for them. It seems like the price was fair. The driveway is steep, needed some updates, and a slight smell of dog. I think some staging and organizing would be helpful too. And I was like,
What do you
same.
know?
I was like, yeah, all of that. I was like, but you know, I'm like, I'm not opposed to hurting feelings. I was like, I'm trying to educate these guys so they can know what they need to do to sell their house, right? Like they hired us to sell their house, not to list their house. That's what we're here for, and that's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
So that feedback is huge.
So he screenshotted it and he sent it to our sellers. And that way they could see that it wasn't just our opinion, you know, that
No, our opinion's
that all
awesome.
these things
Like-
need done. And we actually are ready to help them pay for these things, like do these things with them, like and they're resistant to it. And so then they're able to see from a buyer's agent that this is why these were some turnoffs to the buyer. And so when you provide feedback like that, good or bad or whatever, that helps the listing agent not only know, so it's for multiple reasons, but it's helpful, like even a negative feedback, that they included, it's helpful for us to share to the buyers because it might be something they need to hear from another person besides the agent. So yeah, so just like kind of a couple things there. That's really good. So feedback is nice. And then comes the time. Oh yeah, any questions or comments or the way you do things from anybody on here? All right.
So just a note, as we go into this writing an offer piece, that we made this document when the market was crazy, right? So these things are still like guidelines, but they're this is more
These
of
change.
yeah. So
of
this is
course.
ever evolving. We're not when we're helping buyers now, we don't have to be so like with our tail between our legs when we're coming into these negotiations, right? Like we're not having to give up the world. So so just be aware of that as we go through this. It's a lot more flexible.
Yeah. And we can like talk about it and I can, cool. And we have only 10 minutes left. So for sure, this will be a 3-parter. Writing the offer, of course, is this as well as a couple other parts throughout the transaction are not predictable. Each one is different. And, so ask questions like, oh, what about this? What about that? Like, I want to hear, just unmute yourself and start talking. Or if either of us think of anything that we can like ask everybody to. Because I know I'm kind of just moving through it. But so when you are ready to write an offer, I'll say, just because we have had enough listings to be able to say this, but how many do you think, like maybe 75%? Is that too high of a number of agents that reach out and try to talk to us and ask other questions before they write an offer?
Yeah, probably like 60%.
Okay, yeah. So like you'll notice like when you have a listing, if any of you haven't yet on here, you'll get offers just emailed to your inbox, and that's it. And a lot of times they're great offers, like it doesn't mean they're not great offers, but the odds of them, especially if there's multiple offers. So right now, like he said, the market has changed. So multiple offers is not as normal as it was 6 months ago or more. So, but either way, like there's a lot of missed opportunity if you just blindly submit an offer. And so and there's a lot of reasons for that. So one, you want to build a really good relationship with the listing agent, because it establishes trust. If they really enjoy you working with you, your communication, they trust you, they are going to really, really work. And I'm generalizing. This is not all the time, but most of the time, they're going to want to hear what you have to say as you advocate for your clients, and you're going to be having great communication. And so in that way, they are then a lot of times you'll be educating them on things. Like even if it's an experienced agent, there might have been something that you learned, like Tracy teaches CE classes all the time, Tracy on this call. So you might learn something new from her that maybe that agent has no idea of, and you can use that in your communication with them. And they're like, oh, I didn't think about that. So like, then they will be and they'll receive that well, and they might be able to discuss with their client, and your negotiation goes smoother and possibly in your buyer's favor better. So a good relationship is key.
Like with anything, this is our business, is relationships. So
yes.
So create a good relationship, keep that door open. everybody's going to benefit from that.
Yeah.
We're all on the same team at the end of the day.
Yeah.
No matter what side you're on, we're on the same team,
Yeah.
taking care of our clients and, and making it a great experience for everybody. So
Yeah. And by the way, we've had times where we have built a good relationship with an agent in another city. And then they've referred buyers to us because they live in another city. Listings are easy, not really buyers all the time. So you just never know what will come out of it. So
yeah, or if you have an awesome team and everyone wants to join it, and then you're just like super cool and they're like, wow, I want to be on your team. And then they're on your team. So.
yeah, there you go. So anyway, so call them, have a conversation, find out if there's anything else that you can do to make your offer strong in the seller's eyes. That was very important in the market that we just got out of, because you would be competing against many other offers typically. So in this market, let me try to formulate, let me know if you have any comments. Maybe a reason why this would be important here is if, you could maybe, if they want to live there for, a week or two, like remain in the home a week or two after closing, then perhaps you could have maybe the sales price be a little bit lower. Like you can find non-monetary ways to make it stronger for them, but maybe save more dollars in your buyer's pocket. Does that make sense?
Yeah. There's ways to
Make
negotiate
sure
everything.
I'm saying this.
Yeah.
So it's still important to do that, because if you are, whatever your buyers are offering, if you can still find a way to make it a win-win for everybody, then asking the listing agent this question will help that. So we have a few more minutes. So when you go to write the offer, be in communication with their lender. Did I put anything else about the
Preferably
lender?
beforehand, so they
Oh,
can
yeah.
actually buy the house and they're not lying to you. And
Well,
it
yeah,
gets
so
weird.
I put that up there
Yeah.
that like when they say they're pre-approved or whatever they're doing, you are already talking to the lender, for sure, like before you show the houses and everything. But yeah, so like, when you go to look at a house, preferably you will have already sent, usually texted the lender that address, and sales price and property tax amount, or just the address. They'll ask you what else they need, from you. And they will make sure, so if the property taxes are really high and you're like approaching their max
Their
pre-approval
general
amount,
pre-approval.
there's a chance that they actually wouldn't be pre-approved for something with extraordinarily high property taxes. But if they're in really low property taxes, which it just depends on what area they're in, they might actually be pre-approved for a little bit more than what they originally told. They're usually base that pre-approval on an average property tax. So always worth talking to the lender just to be like, are we good? Do we have a little wiggle room? Whatever it is. So, that's a step you can take that no, you're not the lender. Yes, that is the lender's realm. But if you are keeping in mind these big picture things, it reduces potential buyer disappointment, and everything. So, so you will find out from the lender when, if they got this offer accepted, how many days would they need for it to close, or what would the close date be comfortably? And so you'll need to know that, and have the pre-approval letter, those two things from the lender before you can, it is recommended you include the pre-approval letter with the offer, at least in Oregon. Brandon, I know you're in California. I'm sure it's the same thing, but the legal stuff can vary a little bit there. And it depends on what you put in the offer. There's a box to check that you'll include the pre-approval letter within 1 business day, but it's recommended to include it with that. It's cleaner. It's more,
That's professional.
it's I've maybe twice seen it the other way.
It's
where
and that's when
if they really want
clients
to
are working with lenders of actual banks or whatever, that they don't work on the weekends. It's tough, but
so it's not really a good look. So try not to do that. So these are things that you can ask, do they need as short of a close as possible, or do they need it 60 days out? Do they want to live there longer after the close date? If so, do they need to rent it back from the the person that's selling the property. Buying the property, sorry. Just correct me.
Transactioning the property.
Yeah. And so there's lots of things that could be important to the seller that you can find out. So like he said, it's not, you're not up against a ton of offers. So, so these things are helpful to know because you can use them to also, save a little bit of money for your buyer potentially. So just to know these is no harm in it.
Yeah, leveraging.
Yeah. And
We might want to
wait for that one. Yeah. All right.
And open
So
it up
does
to the-
that make sense? Yeah. Does that make sense to everybody? Awesome. I know a lot of you have on our team have seen this document and heard about it. Have any of you seen like in the, I know we haven't gone over a lot of writing the offer. Have any of you seen anything of that would be good to mention, like when you were showing a home or setting expectations, or when you're talking to another agent, like the listing agent, as far as communication? Tracy, do you have any recommended classes coming up that would impact any of this at all?
We have, tomorrow there's a class at Mission Mill that Walt Schultz is putting on that
Oh, yeah.
is in person from 10 to noon, I think. I'm supplying lunch, so if you guys are hungry. And then after that, there's some online portions of it. I'm not exactly sure what is being covered, but he always has some really great tidbits about the market. I would just say
Yeah.
be in communication with your lender, because with the rates being so volatile, if the interest rate changes, what your client can afford changes with that. And also we have some great tools and apps and things, so you can kind of play with that yourself. If you happen to be out on a Saturday showing a client a home and you can't get a hold of your lender, you can kind of play with what their payment is, because that's truly what people care about, is how much their payment's going to be.
Yep.
So you make sure you're in the right price range for that. So those would be the things that I would be paying attention to.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Tracy can hook you up with, or at least tell you who can hook you up with Fidelity's tools.
Yeah.
Having that, being able to on your phone, like come up with, the payment or,
Or
whatever.
looking up the taxes, like you were saying
Yeah.
about taxes, you can look those up from your phone also.
Yeah. So having that is like, they're amazing. And probably they have like, you can export the PDF and send it to your buyer and like
Yep.
that all right there. Yeah.
Yep.
So
Very
just
cool.
makes you that much more head and shoulders above the rest. And the class you mentioned with Walt Schultz, he is he's a very knowledgeable, very good lender. You told me about him before, like
Yeah,
a
I've met
year
with Walt,
ago.
yeah.
Yeah. So I follow him on Instagram. But yeah, so if you aren't subscribed to her, to Tracy's emails, and she sent out all the class info.
Yeah, and I don't recognize most of the names on here. So actually, Jordan, if you could just forward me everyone's contact info, then I can get them plugged into my system, and they'll get the CEs when I do them and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
That'd be
and
awesome.
it's specifically for Oregon, right? Just because Brandon's in California.
Yeah, just for
Yeah.
Oregon. I mean, we
Okay.
do have Fidelity in California, and I can hook you
Okay.
up with other salespeople all over the
Yeah.
country, but for
Yeah.
our stuff, it's just the
Cool.
Oregon stuff.
Perfect. Yeah, Brandon, I'll see what I can do to hook you up with that. But yeah, so yeah, that sounds good. I'll send you everyone's info and you can get them added on, because she literally just today sent out a whole bunch like some coupon codes for stuff.
Yeah.
Or like I didn't get to
Yeah.
read, maybe a mailer or something. I
Yeah, if you're doing some farming, we've
Yeah.
got some farming tools, and if you're sending out postcards, it's a discount
Yeah.
code for the month of November.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, lots of good stuff.
She's probably one of the only like emails that I open up, because it always is very valuable stuff. So totally recommend it. But anyways, all right, cool. I'll end the recording and I will see you all next week for the third part. I don't know if it'll be the last part, but the third part. So
Thanks for letting me pop on. I appreciate it.
yeah, thank
It's gonna be
you.
the third part. So, the first movie's always the best, right? The third one's actually gonna be the best here. So
Part 4 is usually overkill, but
Yeah, we'll try to. All right, bye everybody.
Bye, thank you.
bye.
Ah.